Let us talk about the building blocks of handwriting. The occupational therapist Bruni developed a very good explanation of the different levels of development that precedes handwriting. Right at the bottom, she has placed postural motor control. Then she talked about hand function. Then she did perceptual development. And then lastly, she spoke about praxis. And those are the building blocks that underlie all writing. Now, obviously, there are more aspects that contribute to handwriting, like cognitive functioning and auditory perception, but in this video, we're not covering that. What I will do next is to actually take each of these building blocks and unpack that so that you understand how they present in class if a learner has a problem with them, how they develop normally, and also what you could do to support that individual learner who shows you that he has difficulty with something. So let us talk about postural motor control. Big word, maybe you're not quite familiar with it, but it does refer to the body's ability to stay upright. When I talk about core muscles, if you're a regular to the gym, you probably know what that is. If you're like me and we don't go to the gym regularly, let me explain to you. It is the strong muscles, the big muscles that holds you upright. It is the neck muscles, the back muscles, the stomach muscles, and the hip muscles that helps us to maintain a posture or to return to a posture. And if they're not very strong, we would be like a bag of salt, because there would be nothing that really holds us up. And we would have great difficulty, and it would take a lot of effort to change position. Right, so that are the core muscles is the ones that we use for postural motor control. When a baby develops, the baby is born with very little core muscles. They're there, but they don't have any ability to be controlled. So we see arms and legs flaying around, lots of mass movement, and only by about 3 months do we see the baby being able to hold up his head, and sometimes even being able to turn the head and look around. And that is when you hold the baby upright against your chest. If you ask your grade R learners to lie on their stomachs and lift their heads and keep their head up, you might find they have difficulty with that. And you'll see as we continue in the video how important that is. Your learner who is already sitting, the child sitting at 6 months to 7 months, can also hold himself upright, and he's starting something quite unique where he's able to cross the midline of his body. We have an imaginary midline going down the front of the body, and we note as occupational therapists at what age the child is able to cross over and reach for something on the other side of the body. It is important because it tells us that the two sides of the brain are now communicating and collaborating to make movement possible. Very, very important. By the age of 9-10 months, the baby will be crawling. And again, we see this rotation around the body axis when the baby can crawl. Really, really very important phase that the child should not miss out on. If you have learners in your class who do the bum shuffle, I urge you to try and put them on their tummy and see if you can get them to rather start crawling, because we do find that children who only do the bum shuffle would have a bigger chance of not being able to write neatly. It is because the crawling gives a lot of input through the shoulders and through the hips, which makes the development of the postural control so much better. When the child is 12 months to 15 months, you'll see that the child can now pull himself up and start moving along surfaces. That is also a very important phase, and it precedes the actual walking. When you work with learners this age, I want to encourage you to not let them sit on chairs to do their work, their creative work. Rather have them sitting on the floor or working against the wall. It is because I find it important that they would strengthen the shoulders and the hips while working. For those aged, the 2 to 4 year olds, I only let them sit at the table when they're eating. For the rest, I rather have them on the floor and against the wall and kneeling. A very nice activity to do with that age group is to have them play in the sand, but actually standing next to a sand table where the sand is, or filling it with water so that they can do sand and water play. It's a very encouraging activity for them. They love doing it. They keep on moving. They keep on reaching across their body midline, and it just facilitates that whole process. So the development of the postural motor control sits very tightly with the fact that the learner will cross his midline. Now, if you find learners in your class, in grade R or older, that do not cross their body midline, or that does not have good postural control, you will see that those babies have a low muscle tone and they really look like a bag of salt. They're forever slouching in their chair, they slide down their chair, they can't really sit up. You see them in story time, how they just sit there like a little lump. They want to lie down, they can't really maintain their posture the whole day, and they have poor gross motor skills. They're the clumsy ones in your class. And also they would be the ones that keep on fidgeting. They're forever moving, like they really want to make sure that they are still here and that their body is still with them. I think they're all the time trying to make sure that here I am and I have to move just to make sure that I know that I'm here. If you have those learners in your class, you can support them by making sure that you do not skip a physical education lesson. I know we all fall into the trap of thinking, oh, I've got so much maths to do, I'll use the physical education lesson for that. Please don't. Your learners still need their physical education because we want them to develop their gross motor skills, and you can follow any program. You can speak to your physical education teacher and ask him or her to assist you with these learners, but they really need to build their core muscles. And core muscles are not built in one session. Those of you who go to the gym will be able to testify to us that it's hard work and it's continuous work. So to build core muscles, you really need to have a program that you follow. It's not a once-off session where you tire the kids out and tomorrow they'll have core muscles. Another aspect that can be included for these learners is to get them to cross their body midline. A nifty way of testing that is to see if they are crossing their body midline with ease, is you just put a rope on the ground and you ask them to cross over. So they put their feet on the one side of the rope and you ask them to cross over the rope and then bring the other foot around and cross over the rope again. And you let them practice a few times and you see with what ease they're learning this. If they keep on not being able to do this, they most probably have a problem with crossing their body midline. And you will pick it up in the class as well, where they sit and they turn their paper completely and they write quite skew, having the paper tilted to the side, and then they start writing. So those are your learners that are not crossing their body midline. And you need to try and stimulate them to actually be able to cross their body midline. You could, for instance, for that, use hand clapping patterns. The grade 2 girls just love hand clapping patterns. You always see them on the playground, and they're busy with clapping this and clapping that and da-da-da. And they've got songs that they sing with that. And it's because it's naturally, developmentally, what they like doing, and it's how they are developing their midline crossing. But you can use that activity and introduce that to the whole class. In therapy, I've always made it easy for the learner, and I give him an auditory clue when they do the hand clapping pattern. I tell them that this is and then we count. And 1, and 2, and 3. And then we start all over again. So it becomes a very nice pattern that they can continue. It's easier to let them practice against the wall because then there's not a friend opposite them that can also make mistakes. Once they're fluent with that, you can put two friends together to practice that. It would really improve the crossing of the body midline. There's also the aspect of letting them do a lazy 8. The lazy 8 is a big 8 lying on its side, and you let them stand in front of the blackboard, the whiteboard, against the wall, and trace the big lazy 8, encouraging them to keep their feet right in the middle, because they do tend to want to move to the side that they're drawing. So keep them in the midline and let them do the lazy 8. You can play games like Simon Says, where Simon says, take your right hand and put it on your left ear, take your left hand and put it on your right knee. So that kind of games. It's always best to incorporate these kind of exercises playfully and bring it in as a game rather than saying you are now practicing to cross your body midline. Another activity that's really good is rolling. You just take all the tables to one side in your classroom, and you say to the learners, I want you to roll from this side of the classroom to that side and then back. And you will pick up those learners who have difficulty rotating around the body axis because they will roll like a log. They will just go and not really have that segmented roll down to a T. And with practice, it should improve. Another very good activity is crawling. So try and incorporate some crawling into your physical education. Crawling remains a stalwart when it comes to building the shoulders and the hips with some muscle tone and resistance there. There are also various sports that you could get the children to take part in. A whole list. There would be things like cricket, volleyball, basketball, netball, mostly all the games where they use a ball, and even your ballets and your gymnastics would be really good for the learners to build a bit of muscle tone and to make sure that they cross their body midline. So we've now done the support of the learner on how you as a teacher can make sure that your learners do develop core muscles so that their postural control improves. And then you should see that they can sit more upright and they can actually maintain their posture for the whole day. Another important aspect to remember is with the postural control is that you choose your desk and chair very carefully. Your chair must be the correct height and your desk must be the correct height for your learner, because otherwise you're putting them at a disadvantage. You can't really expect a child to slouch behind a chair or behind a desk that's this high, or to bend over and work on a desk that's too low. We actually, on our website, have a link that you can click on to see exactly how to make sure that you choose the correct desk. In the next video, or the next section of the video, we're going to look at hand function and how that impacts on handwriting.